Recorded at the WNDU 16 News Now studios, this is the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold Notre Dame Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, columnist Tom Noy, Notre Dame football beat writer Mike Berardino, and WNDU's Jackson Deal.
Welcome to the Pot of Gold. I am Tom. That is Mike. Over there is Jackson. And obviously we get off on a different foot here because Mike Berardino did not get the memo. You're supposed to wear a light blue shirt.
Light blue shirt
podcast. It's light blue shirt day.
I have those out next time.
Yes, you do. Next time it'll be white.
Hey, who was that guy introducing us with that super deep voice? That was cool.
It was definitely not me.
Is your dad? Who is that? He was good.
It was our voiceover guy.
Oh,
we are finally here at game week, and I will be the first one to say it has gotten a little stale around the Notre Dame football beat in watching our 5 periods of practice, going to the Jordan Hall of Science building, going back for interviews, or interviewing guys up in the Irish Athletic Center where it was approximately 135 degrees last night with no air conditioning and the weather that rolled through South Bend. But we will try a little something different here on the Pot of Gold podcast. We have a new format.
Little format going on today.
Breaking it down into different stages, setting the stage, Irish Rewind, Pot of Old, not to be confused with Pot of Gold. So, Jackson, let's set the stage.
Sounds good.
And that is Mike Berardino on drums. We'll have
there we go.
the
Drum
credit
line.
at the end of the show. All right, I'm going to just start with this, Mike B. What's at stake this week for Notre Dame? Something, nothing, everything? What do you have?
Well, thanks to the newly expanded college football playoff, something is at stake, but certainly not everything. But to factor in some other things, kind of style points will matter here. We've talked on our previous podcast, this trio, about the lack of juice on this schedule in terms of impressing the computers and impressing the snack crew at College Football Playoff Central. Florida State has a loss already. That was supposed to provide juice. We have USC. We're not sure what that will provide late. A close loss is not damning. A big win does not mean it's going to be 12-0 necessarily, but I think they start with health. You like to get out of there with Riley Leonard healthy and see that he has not played a game he has not started and completed a game. I'm going to say it was the final play, but he has not walked off the field healthy after starting a game in 49 weeks, I believe it is.
On my top 4 players to watch that will appear in Thursday's Tribune and maybe online early tomorrow. We're taping this on Wednesday of game week of Texas A&M. Saturday's game will be the first game that Riley Leonard plays as quarterback in 305 days.
That's what I was looking for.
There you go. I got it. I covered you.
The days, and that's the Louisville game.
That is the Louisville game. He was hurt against Notre Dame. I think he missed the following week, whoever Duke played. He tried to come back against Florida State.
Did well.
But then
they were
faded.
winning late in the third quarter, as
Right.
he talked yesterday. That was if he could have made it through. But that's 305 days.
305 days, so Riley Leonard will indeed get the start on Saturday as the number 1 quarterback, the only captain on offense. We'll touch on captains in a little bit. Jackson, what does Saturday mean for Notre Dame football 2024?
Yeah, 2024. I think it means a lot, especially after that Florida State loss. There's not many chances on this schedule to get a statement win, and I think that Florida State game just got knocked down a couple of tiers, especially if that's the type of team Florida State's going to be. So I think this game means a lot more than it did before this past Saturday. I'll put it that way. I think that the chances for a signature win, I think the chances are dwindling on this schedule, so it means a lot.
Unlike Florida State, if Notre Dame loses on Saturday, the Irish will not be in 17th place in the ACC like the Seminoles currently are. So what's at stake? I'd say a hell of a lot is at stake because, as we've talked about, the schedule is not littered with games where you can point to and say, that'll help Notre Dame's ranking, that'll help Notre Dame's ranking. We thought Florida State was going to be the toughest home game of the season. What's Florida State going to look like in November when they finally come up here to South Bend? What's Louisville going to look like? What's USC going to look like? Look, Notre Dame wasn't able to do it in 2019 against Georgia. They weren't able to do it against Ohio State in 2022. Both those games were kind of like but games. Well, they lost, but they played well. It was a hostile atmosphere. This can't be a but game for Notre Dame. You have to go in there. You have to win this game and maybe help slingshot your way toward the college football playoff. There's going to be so many different twists and turns later on in September, in October, in November, that nobody's going to really know what the postseason is going to look like. They have already started a bubble watch on one sports site, The Athletic, a bubble watch for college football, for the college football playoff. We deal with that in college basketball from January on. It'll be bubble watch every single week for Notre Dame. Are they in? Are they out? Are they going to host? Are they going to go on the road? To get off on a really good note, you go and you beat this Texas A&M team that we have no idea is all about. We don't know what Notre Dame's all about, but we don't know what Texas A&M is all about. So what's at stake? A lot. Go win a game. As I wrote for Friday, in Friday's Tribune, you have to just go meet the moment. When's the last time a Notre Dame team met the moment of a big game and a big road atmosphere? Florida State?
Yeah.
2021. But and Riley Leonard talked about this on Tuesday. He said, if I had to compare it to this week to anything, or this Saturday's game to anything, it would be Florida State. Duke went there. They played at Doak Campbell Stadium. They played at night. Doak Campbell Stadium holds 65,000. Kyle Field is 103. Riley Leonard has no idea what he's walking into on Saturday.
It's going to be loud, Tom.
You think?
It's going to be loud. There's going to be a lot of this. I want to it's going to be a lot of this on for Notre Dame. It'll be Kaiser doing this some, I guess, but not as much. But it'll be a lot of Riley Leonard this, and hoping that we have no idea what that system will be like, the headset, helmet, and will it operate and will it be heard over the din of all that orchestrated chanting and cheering?
Oh, Texas A&M has it orchestrated. Yeah.
Are you going to Yell practice on Friday?
That's in College Station, right?
So,
yeah. Well,
you'll have a car.
It's in the evening.
It's at midnight.
Oh no!
Oh, it's at midnight. It is
that's
in
a
the
little
evening.
scary. I'm not sure I'd get out of there safely. But it's it's kind of like I really never been. I don't really want to go to any militia gatherings or anything, but it feels like they have like militia capabilities there. So it's a really weird spot. But for Notre Dame to go down there and I did a little just a little fun with the possible records. Notre Dame is a place that goes on the road or even on neutral sites and regularly sets the all-time attendance record. So these are it would not surprise me if the 2014 Ole Miss crowd of 110,633 at Kyle Field is surpassed. I mean, they're going to pack those folks in first game of the Elko era. They've got the capability because just in June, of course, they also allowed people on the field. I don't think fans will be allowed on the field for this one until afterwards if it went that way. But George Strait played there in June, and they put in 110,905. That's any event record. So that's kind of the bar, and they're just going to be waving people in. If you guys like, can you yell?
It's a fire marshal game.
Can you yell? Yeah, it's going
fire marshal. Hey, don't
show up that night.
One of those. So that's why getting off to a fast start essential. Taking the ball down the field in the first offensive series essential. Putting up points, play from the lead.
Monday, Notre Dame released its official depth chart for the game on Saturday, and nobody in May or April or maybe even June and July had the starting left tackle as Anthony Knapp and the starting left guard as Sam Pendleton. Your shock factor, scale of 1 to 10, Jackson. I mean, 12?
I can say 10 at that point. It's when I saw those names and I was thinking back, covering this team throughout the spring and now fall camp, I never would have thought that. I mean, I never would have guessed that that's going to be the starting lineup heading into week 1. The first game, it was very, very shocking. And hearing there's only 6 career starts among all the offensive linemen. Shock factor number 10 on that one.
Pat Coogan has started 13 games as a left guard. Where did Sam Pendleton come from?
He's from North Carolina.
Well, besides that,
he went to Ronald Reagan High School.
Look at you with your Sam Pendleton knowledge. How did he win this job?
And he's going to certainly hope that there's no Mr. Elko, tear this wall down. There's going to be none of that. They're going to have to stay firm. That's a stunner. I mean, especially when it wasn't just Coogan. All right, you didn't like Coogan didn't fare that well against Duke last year. When you look back at the ratings, let's get wonky. Do we have time on this little show running thing to get a little wonky?
We always have time.
Let's take you back to that Duke game in the offensive line. You know, that was the only game, I think, in his last 2 years that Joe Alt allowed a sack. He might also had one at Louisville, but
I think
he allowed a sack in that game. And Pat Coogan, more importantly, allowed 7 pressures, 18 total pressures against Notre Dame from the Duke defense last year. You know, R.J. Oben was part of that, but that was Mike Elko and company. Different nominal coordinator now. They went and got Jay Bateman, former Army, North Carolina. He's been, you know, I think Notre Dame's torn up a Jay Bateman defense before, but it's really Elko with his imprint. So Coogan didn't seem to have the quickness in the interior. The interior got eaten up. His Pro Football Focus grades in that game were in the 50s. Zeke Correll, no longer here. His grades were in the 50s. Blake Fisher got destroyed in that game.
Who played well? Anybody?
Rocco Spindler.
Yeah.
This is the thing. That was Rocco Spindler, who was erratic in his 10 starts, but that was his best game. And I understand that A&M talent is different than Duke talent, but the scheme will be relatively similar. I love the fact Marcus Freeman talking about got to stay out of 3rd and long because they're always going to send exotic stuff at you, but at 3rd and long, Elko can get super exotic.
I love that word, exotic.
Super exotic. And I guess you know it when you see it, like the Supreme Court once said. And so Rocco Spindler sitting there in the mid-70s with his grade against Duke. I mean, that's, you know, I really expected him to be the starter. And now let me just say, there's a lot of oars and undetermined starters on the A&M depth chart. Notre Dame going along with this method. There's nothing that says, Tom, that you don't come out and if you don't like how it goes in that first series,
true,
that you just roll with the experienced guys now. You gave the start. What you did is you distracted the heck out of Mike Elko and his people for a week. You know, I would be more apt to buy in fully on my conspiracy theory there, and I love a good conspiracy theory.
Yes, you do. You are Mr. Conspiracy.
I really am.
Absolutely.
But if I were running it, you know, I wouldn't want to telegraph to the world if I had, you know, some flexibility on the left side, and apparently they do, exactly how I'm going to line up. Now, Anthony Knapp, I buy that a lot more, that Anthony Knapp can start the game and go all the way. And Sam Pendleton may have a wonderful career here. He's talented. He's just completely unproven. And so is Knapp. But the anecdotal stuff from the spring and then subsequently the way Mike Denbrock talked about Knapp last night on Tuesday, with the coordinator availability. I mean, just said this is a guy who just everything they threw at him, he got it. Knapp, a naturally aggressive kind of guy who comes from Roswell, Georgia. And when we talked to him in the spring, which I think is great, I just think it's, not to overstate what we do, I think it's great that they put the newcomers in front of us so they can knock off some of that nerves, because if you just keep them in bubble wrap the whole time, can't even talk to the media, as many programs will do, like for their whole freshman year, would you be able to start game 1 as a freshman?
In front of 100,000 some people?
Right? So, that's, that's scarier than we are.
Hey, maybe.
Generally speaking. So, Anthony Knapp sounds like a guy who I would not have expected him at left tackle, but if you're willing to go Jagusa in his second career start at left tackle before he got hurt, well, here's a guy who will be going in his first.
Before we close this first segment, let's touch on the forecast for College Station on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
And one word of advice to Mr. Berardino. Get a weather story ready.
That's right.
On your TTP.
That's right.
Saturday, College Station, Texas, high of 88, low of 76. Rain showers in the morning, scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon. Chance of rain, 50%. Although there was a chance of rain of 0% here in the South Bend area on Tuesday afternoon, and we got absolutely pummeled for about 35 minutes. So maybe it rains, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's hot, maybe it's not. So we shall see. That is we're closing out, setting the stage. How about a little Irish rewind real quick?
Little Irish rewind.
Well, we can't go Irish rewind because we can't talk about the game. We're not going to talk about the Sun Bowl, which is the last game Notre Dame played. So let's rewind back to the day that they announced captains, which ironically was weird. It was weird. It was on a Sunday.
They did it Sunday last year, too.
Did they?
They did it on a Sunday last year, too.
Saturday was the last scrimmage. Marcus Freeman was asked about the captains. He said it was going to happen really soon. It basically happened 24 hours later, and they announced 6 captains?
5.
5 captains. 4 on defense.
Yeah.
Jack Kaiser, no-brainer. Riley Mills, a little bit of a surprise. Xavier Watts, no-brainer. Benjamin Morrison, no-brainer. And on offense, the only captain was the obvious one, Riley Leonard. Good. They only have one offensive captain, Jackson. Maybe would you like to see maybe a Mitchell Evans or a Jaden Thomas slide in there?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to have something like that, but I think a lot of things, almost every single position group on the offense we talk about is newcomers, whether it's younger players or whether it's transfers. So I kind of get it. Seeing Riley there as the captain, I mean, that's a good sign. You need to have your quarterback as your captain. Riley Leonard. Yeah, Riley Leonard there. Yeah, as your captain.
We got 2 Rileys.
I forgot about that. I was thinking so much offense right there. But yeah, the fact you get Leonard as your captain, that's the important part. But
Leonard Moore. It's all.
He's a freshman. Forget about Leonard Moore.
You know what? Okay,
really
that part.
Good.
The quarterback, Riley Leonard, that transferred in from Duke University.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that him. Remember,
Yep.
you heard of him?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad that he's the captain. Would have been nice to see someone else, but I think with all the changeover on the offensive side of the ball, not too unexpected in my mind.
Bo Collins, did you mention? I wasn't listening, but Bo Collins would have been a guy if you came in as another.
What the hell
transfer.
else are you doing without listening?
I'm
We're sitting in this. We're sitting like 2 feet away from each other. What are you doing where you're not
I'm
listening?
easily distracted. I was doing a little research here.
Yep.
I wanted to bring this out there if we have just real quick. This surprised me. This order, you know, we've talked on this podcast before about so much of what we have to do covering modern college sports is read between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'll just give you the last night on Tuesday night. Al Golden was asked about his recent comment that no matter whether you're captain or not, he said we have a lot of leaders, bunch of leaders.
Riley Mills said we have 100 leaders. He's like, well, maybe not 100.
Maybe not 100. And so Al Golden, given a chance, he said he offered up. I could name 4 or 5 more just on defense. Jordan Clark and Rod Hurd. Jordan Clark, I'll buy. These are both transfers, but Rod Hurd seems to be, he's a backup right now. Yeah. He could rise, but Adon Schuler, even though he's young, he's pretty low key, but he earned a starting spot. He earned it with his work. Drake Bowen was mentioned. I'll buy that. That's a future captain.
Future, absolutely.
And Adon Schuler could be a future captain. Josh Burnham, he mentioned, even though he's young, and he left it at that. He did not mention his usual go-to. He loves Howard Cross III, and Howard Cross seemed like that's a bubble guy on the captain. I mean, that's a guy who just lays it all out there. So whether mentally he's already turned the page, thinking, well, I don't know. I don't want to throw anything out there because I think Howard Cross is an All-American for a good reason and a stalwart of that defense, and they'll play him as many plays as that hamstring or whatever it is.
That's
will
something.
allow. Mm-hmm. But he left him out.
Maybe he just assumes that he's a captain.
I don't know. He went pretty deep on that list. I mean, deep. He went deep on that list. I mean, he loves Josh Burnham. We know that. Drake Bowen, sure. I also enjoyed the fact that we've got rival. We were advised back in the spring that no one calls Kingston Viliamu Asa KVA. Mm-hmm. We all do it because we don't have to spell it. It's hard to spell. It's a great name.
Yeah.
But you have a KVA dropped. We had a KVA drop from Marty Biaggi last night, so that KVA is okay.
It's a thing.
We can go with that.
I say everybody calls him KVA.
But
that's what I've heard.
Al Golden, multiple references to him as King. King.
Yeah,
I love that.
If you're going to say his name, you're not going to call him Kingston. Hey, Kingston! They're going to yell King.
King. But is it with 1 G or 2?
It is 1 G. It's 2 N's, isn't it? Look it up.
Yeah.
Ignore us and
Yeah.
look it up. I'll look it up right now.
He's calling him King. Kingston.
Well, however you...
2 N's at the end.
However, is it 2 N's?
Yeah, 2 N's at the end.
Anyway, you got some options there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's another guy who's, just getting started. So we're going to see some day one talent, some debut talent out there, entrusted in front of a lot of loud, screaming Texans.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been waiting for this, and this.
And that. And that'll do it for Irish Rewind. Now, our next segment, Pot of Old.
Here we go.
Is going to make.
You're not in. You can sit.
Yeah. This is where Jackson steps out and gets a drink of water, because today's Pot of Old is the 1993 Cotton Bowl that Mike Berardino wrote about earlier this week with Reggie Brooks, where number 5 Notre Dame plays number 4 Texas A&M in 1993. Jackson, where were you in 1993?
Not around.
I didn't think so. Notre Dame 28, Texas A&M 3 in the Cotton Bowl, in what was the old Cotton Bowl, not where they play it now at AT&T Stadium in suburban Dallas. Notre Dame finishes 10-1-1. Mike's guy, Reggie Brooks, rushes 22 times for 115 yards. Blamed a couple of his fumbles on cold weather in Dallas. Didn't he play in cold weather in South Bend when he was
Sure, yeah.
So Notre Dame
hit on the elbow, one of them. They hit him right on the elbow.
That's what it was. Yeah. Notre Dame did what Notre Dame used to do back in the day. They ran 64 times for 290 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. And there was one time in the second half where the Irish ran a staggering 34 consecutive run plays.
I love that. That's they kind of did that against Cal. I don't know how far they got in that first win ever of the Marcus Freeman era. They just started running duo, and so maybe that's we'll see that at some point.
And looking at some of here's a trivia question. I know you won't. There's no way you're going to get it. The 34 straight run plays. The starting offensive line that day in Dallas for Notre Dame: left tackle Lindsey Knapp, left guard Aaron Taylor, who moved to tackle, I believe, the following year. Center Tim Ruddy, right guard Todd Norman, and right tackle Justin Hall. So that was the starting offensive group. Interesting number I pulled from that, the 1992 offensive stats. Notre Dame finished 3rd in the country in total offense at 470.4 yards per game, 3rd in rushing at 280.9, 49th in passing. They were a run football team, 189.5, and 4th in scoring at 37.2. Why is the scoring number intriguing? Because last year, when Notre Dame averaged 39.2 points per game and finished 7th, that's the highest a Notre Dame offense has finished in scoring since that 1992 season. How about that fun fact? That
was well researched, and I'm just going to share with the listeners, if they haven't had a chance to read this, because we started our week off with a little look back at South Bend Tribune and IndyInsider.com. But Reggie Brooks had a great quote. He said back then the mindset was, we're going to pound on you day by day, play by play, and it's just going to keep going. We used to actually point and tell teams where we were running the ball and dare them to stop us. And I think that should be tried, because who's going to believe it, right? I mean, everybody's okay,
they're coming
right
this way,
coming at you, right tackle, right, and boom, here comes Jeremiah Love off tackle, whatever, and just line up and man up and
get it
done, it done. Enough of the trickeration.
I like that.
That's what they were doing then 30 years ago. Well, when you were just a gleam in your parents' eyes.
Do you watch any old Notre Dame highlights, Sir Jackson?
I've seen some, yeah. I've seen some.
Yeah, did you see that 1992 Cotton Bowl?
I have not seen that. I'll have to go back and watch it.
That 1992 season, that night, actually it was 93, it was 93 Cotton Bowl in January.
Yeah.
That was the last Notre Dame football game that they played before some dope named Tom Noy became a full-time writer of the South Bend Tribune in 1993. So I remember watching that game, and then the following year I was covering Notre Dame football in 1993 when they almost should have had to win a national championship, if not for one David Gordon. So bad memories for a lot of Irish fans right there. But that was my first season covering Notre Dame. It's 1993.
Not a bad way to start.
Not a bad way to start. We will take a break. We'll come back with our guest spotlight. We're talking to Alex Miller, an actual newspaper writer. Thank you very much. From the Bryan College Station Eagle, we'll get to Alex after this. Back on the pot of gold, talking Notre Dame, we're talking Texas A&M, and now we're talking with Alex Miller from the Bryan College Station Eagle, sitting in an actual newspaper newsroom. What is that? I'm so a place that used to be so near and dear to us is now so foreign. Alex, what's happening down in Texas?
You know, it's actually cooled off a little bit. I heard it's actually really warm up in South Bend this week, which is a little surprising to me.
Yesterday afternoon, I looked at the feels like temperatures between South Bend and College Station, and in College Station at like 3:30 in the afternoon, it was 93 down in College Station, and in South Bend it was 108.
Yeah.
108 in South Bend. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Feels like with the heat index, so it's
Heat
cooled off a
index.
little bit
Yeah.
today.
Well, hey, it's probably good for the Irish getting acclimated to some humidity and some heat, because it sounds like it's going to be pretty steamy Saturday night at Kyle Field.
Well, when you talk about this Notre Dame team, you start with Riley Leonard, you start with the defense, you start with Marcus Freeman. When you talk about A&M, what's the starting point as far as the Aggies and Mike Elko is concerned?
Well, I think on each side of the ball, one, it starts with quarterback Connor Wigman. I mean, I think everybody wants to know, if he can stay healthy, what he is capable of doing. I mean, he has shown some really good flashes in the past, especially last year early on in the season. But, you know, the sample size is pretty on him. What's he capable of doing? What's this new Colin Klein offense going to look like? You know, I think that Aggies kind of got tired of watching Jimbo Fisher's offense, and they're kind of excited to see what Colin Klein brings to the table. Something that's new, different, revamped. It sounds like it might be a little innovative, but we're going to have to see Saturday night. Sounds like Notre Dame's got quite a defense. And then on the other side, I think the defensive line is where it starts for A&M. You know, they got Nick Scorton, the transfer from Purdue. They bring back Shamar Stewart at defensive end, Shamar Turner at defensive tackle. I'm sure that's not going to be confusing for anyone from Notre Dame watching the game Saturday night. But and then, you know, they got a linebacker in Torian York who really burst onto the scene as a freshman last year. He's really stepped into a leadership role. He's already been named a team captain, and I think that's a testament to the type of guy and the leader he is for this team. So, you know, I think it's a cliche to say the game's going to be won in the trenches, but with how young it sounds Notre Dame's offensive line is, and how bad A&M's offensive line was last year, and trying to, you know, revamp and retool a crew of pretty similar players with a couple of transfers mixed in, I think it's definitely easy to say that this game is going to center around the line of scrimmage, and whose offensive line can make enough push to get enough plays on offense to get a big play or two.
Alex, you mentioned Nick Scorton. Mm-hmm. He started at Purdue, or he was at Purdue last year, led the Big Ten in sacks with 10, was top 10 in the country in sacks. How did he get out of Bryan, Texas? He's from Bryan, Texas, right?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. We covered him in high school, being the local paper. You know, when he was in high school, it was like, okay, this kid's really good for, you know, varsity football at the 6A level. That's the highest classification here in Texas. Bryan's the biggest school in our area. And, you know, he was looked at by A&M. Mike Elko was actually the local recruiter for the Aggies at that time when he was still defensive coordinator. And, yeah, he's the one that got away. And to Nick's credit, he went and proved all the doubters wrong at Purdue. And, you know, when he entered the transfer portal, the thing that really sold him on coming back to A&M was Mike Elko was straight with him. Hey, man, I missed my evaluation on you. You proved me wrong, but I want you this time. I'm not going to miss you this go around. And that really resonated with Nick and his family. And, you know, it was cool. I did a feature story on him a couple weeks ago, took a different angle, and talked with some of the community members here in Bryan. And they're so thrilled that he's back. I mean, he's the epitome of a hometown kid. Bryan has kind of had a lineage throughout the years of guys that have gone to A&M and done really well. And he's kind of next in line is what they're hoping. And you know, whether it's taking the team to the local taco shop across the street where he went to high school, or you know, making some appearances out at the local sports bar. You know, people know who Nick Scorton is, and they're looking forward to see what he can do at A&M this fall.
The spinning Nick Scorton, right? He got the spin move. He loves that spin move. Where do you get that from, or where do you get that idea? You don't see that every day.
I'm not too sure on the spin move, but I know he has watched a lot of Von Miller and
Sure.
Miles Garrett. He worked out with them in the summer.
That's right.
Aggies are certainly familiar with those two guys, and Von, certainly an elite edge rusher. Miles has really established himself as one of the NFL's top defensive ends here the last few years with the Browns. So I think watching guys like them probably influenced him along the way. What's funny though is that he didn't really grow up an A&M fan. He didn't watch a lot of A&M games, what he said, and but when you got guys like Von Miller and Miles Garrett, you probably see him on the TV a time or two.
I'd like to ask about another player that I'm kind of hearing some things about from your coverage down there, and the questions that are being posed of the aforementioned OC. Timpson, Texas. Population 996, Alex, has churned out a guy who sounds like another slash kind of weapon there in Terry Bussey, and incredibly fast. I asked Mike Denbrock about him last night since LSU had recruited him as well, and he said he's electric. And I know he's never played a college game, but are you expecting him already in the kick return game at the very least? But that sounds like a guy who, if they get the ball in his hands in space, it could get loud.
Yeah, A&M's got high expectations for Terry Bussey. I mean, he was kind of the crown jewel centerpiece of Mike Elko's first recruiting class. The only guy they signed in the February signing period. He had waited to sign, was kind of weighing his options. Like you said, he was really considering LSU. I think the question with Terry Bussey is he played football at Class 2A, which is the smallest 11-man division in Texas. And, I mean, he stood head and shoulders above every other player that he played against for the most part. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some good football down in 2A, but it is a lot different than SEC, A&M versus Notre Dame. I'm curious to see where A&M uses him. They've hinted at moving him around from defense to offense. A&M probably needs another explosive weapon on the offensive side of the ball. Reuben Owens is out. The running back they expected to be kind of their bell cow heading into the season got a season-ending foot injury in a scrimmage, and it's kind of hard to put a lot of expectations on a freshman like that who's never played at such a high level of football. But like you said, he has the athleticism and the speed. All you got to do is turn on the replay highlights of last year's 2A Division I state championship game, and you'll see what he's made of. Set state championship record in longest touchdown pass and longest touchdown run, and was wearing an A&M decal on the back of his helmet while doing it. Fun fact, he's actually a distant cousin of Nick Scorton, so I don't know what's going on in that family. But they're turning out athletes.
Jackson, you got something?
Of course, yeah. So obviously the big storyline, one of the biggest ones, is the Elko and Riley Leonard connection. We've kind of heard about it a little bit from Leonard's perspective. What has Elko really said about it? What is kind of the storyline from that standpoint been so far leading up to this one?
Yeah, that's exactly what I asked Mike Elko on Monday in his press conference, what it's going to be like going against Riley Leonard. It's kind of weird how last year, that's this guy, right? That's his quarterback, and now they're facing off against each other at two different schools. I mean, that's kind of college football today in a nutshell, right? I mean, that's the way it goes. And, he said it's weird. Obviously Elko wants to win the game, but, he said, hey, besides Saturday night, I'm going to be pulling for my guy the rest of the way out. I mean, you can tell he's got a lot of respect for Riley and the kind of player he is. I mean, you saw the grit and the tenacity that he had last year at Duke. Notre Dame had a lot of respect for him in that game when he went down. And, what was interesting is that Elko said he thinks that Leonard has the upper hand in the matchup. He's seen what the Mike Elko kind of defense has looked like, in practice and whatnot. And so, it'll definitely be interesting to see how that plays into Leonard's advantage, especially against an A&M pass rush that's really going to want to be getting after him against a pretty young offensive line. Speaking of which, Elko really played up the fact that Notre Dame's got a young offensive line, saying, "Hey, I bet if you go back and look, Notre Dame starts a guy that's a freshman on the offensive line. He's probably going to be a future NFL draft pick." So, I know there's a learning curve there, but he's got some respect for what Notre Dame's going to be putting up there on the front five on Saturday night.
Alex, what's it like covering Mike Elko as a head coach as opposed to a defensive coordinator? Like you knew when he was there as a DC, he was going to wind up being a head coach at some point, but not really. You think you're going to have him at Texas A&M, right?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we actually get to talk to the guy. I mean, Jimbo didn't allow his coordinator to talk, except for the first press conference of the season, and one of the beat writers of A&M always joked, "Hey, we'll see you next week, right?" And he kind of just smirked at him like, "Yeah, right, okay." And he kind of make his yearly appearance and disappear up into the press box where he's calling plays. But I think Elko's been pretty real and honest about where A&M's been. He doesn't sugarcoat things. I mean, he's not derogatory about where A&M was and where they need to be, but I think he's given an honest assessment of where this A&M program currently is. He knows that offensive line is a place that needed work and is a place that still needs work. I think that he's a guy that has really tried to preach accountability in the little details, which I think are things that got away from Jimbo Fisher and his coaching staff the last couple years and were key things that led to his demise as A&M's head coach.
How much practice time did you guys get to see in August? How much of what you saw there, how does that play into the ability to hit the ground running in your first game at a new place? Because Elko had to do that at Duke as a first-time head coach, but as we were just discussing, he started off with Temple, Northwestern, and North Carolina A&T. That's a 3-0 start for just about anybody. Hey. But this is Notre Dame coming in. Will they be, how close to what they can be will they be on Saturday night?
That's a great question. We did get to watch a good amount of practice this past month, and you really saw the coaches stressing details. You watch the offensive line, and they're really focusing on technique. A&M's still kind of a mystery of what the right side of their offensive line is going to look like. They have Orrs listed at center and right tackle. It's been an ongoing battle there. I think you're going to see some mixing and matching possibly on the offensive line throughout the game Saturday night. A&M's going to be a work in progress. That's just the bottom line is, this is a team that I think that they will be a lot different from August 31st to November 30th when they play Texas. I think for A&M, it's can you find a way to win against Notre Dame, because the next month gets a little easier before you have a big home game against Missouri to start the month of October. If A&M can find a way to beat Notre Dame, that really changes the trajectory of the season, because it's a team that I do think will get better as the year goes on and gets more comfortable into Colin Klein's offense and figures out what it's going to do at offensive line and who the feature running back should be and who the number one receiver is going to be. And Connor Wegman actually getting those game reps. We talked about he's got such a limited time as a college quarterback. I think he's going to look totally different from the time he plays Notre Dame than he does LSU halfway through the season, and that's such a I think it's hard to know what A&M's going to put up on the field Saturday because there's so much unknowns. What we do know is they have talent, they have a good defense, they got a guy on offense that's trying to do something different. That's not what Jimbo Fisher did, and A&M almost beat teams like Alabama and Tennessee and Ole Miss last year. They lost by one score. You flip those games the other way, they go 10-2. Mike Elko's not the coach here. A whole bunch of those guys are probably still here. You talk about Evan Stewart, Walton Nolan, the guys that were in that 22 recruiting class that everybody knows about. A&M's like right there. It's just a matter of can they put it all together for once.
Alex, Notre Dame football goes all over the place to play, at Ohio State, at Georgia, in NFL stadiums, in baseball stadiums. They're going to Yankee Stadium this year. They have not been to Kyle Field in 21 years. What makes a Saturday night college football game at Kyle Field a gotta-get-to destination for Notre Dame people?
Yeah, I mean, A&M's different. It's I've seen the T-shirts that say Cultists versus Catholics, trying to play on the Catholics versus convicts thing from the Miami game. But yeah, A&M's weird. It's quirky. I grew up in College Station. I actually went to Texas A&M, and yeah, it's kind of a cult, but it's different and it's fun and it's unique and it's cool. There's going to be over 105,000 people there. This is kind of a jaded fan base from the Jimbo Fisher era that, it's been a quiet off season around A&M, and I think people are finally getting excited about what football season is going to bring. Having a game like Notre Dame to open the season, a new coach, a new era, I think is going to, bring out a lot of juices in the fan base. You got students camping out 9 days before ticket pool. And I can't even imagine what that's like, camping in a tent in 100-degree heat. That is,
No.
Kids are crazy. But yeah, I think that the excitement is palpable, and I think that Kyle Field is definitely one of the best venues around. It's different. A&M's got the Corps Cadets. It's not a marching band. It's a military-style band that does really cool formations, and there's 330 of them. There's the big flyover with 2 Black Hawk helicopters and an Apache. A&M's got its own thing, kind of like how people probably view Notre Dame. I mean, I, for one, am looking forward to getting to watch a game in South Bend next year, hopefully, and I think a lot of other Aggies are too, and I think that's how a lot of people view Kyle Field as well, because of the tradition and the pageantry that A&M brings.
Since you're a Texas A&M guy, I got to ask you, if a Texas A&M fan could only choose one, beating Notre Dame to start the 2024 regular season on a high note to open the Mike Elko era, or beating Texas?
Come on.
Beating Texas 100%. I think that is a no-brainer. I think if A&M was 4-7 going into that game and beat Texas and still missed a bowl game, I think people would be pretty amped up, because it probably means that they spoiled something good for Texas. Yeah, it would make the season. It really would. It's like Ohio State, Michigan, right? I mean, if you're Michigan and you lose to Ohio State, or you're Ohio State and you lose to Michigan, it doesn't matter if you win 11-1. That one loss makes it feel like 5. It's like Alabama and Auburn. I think people are forgetting the intensity and the magnitude of this rivalry, and I think people are going to be reintroduced to that this fall, and that game is going to quickly rise the totem pole again of, where it ranks among the college football rivalries across the country.
Yeah, everybody forgot about it because Texas, like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
So, Alex, that'll take care of it. We appreciate the time. Look forward to seeing you down there on Saturday night. Keep the rain away, keep the heat there, and we'll see what happens at Kyle Field with Texas A&M and Notre Dame.
Everybody follow Alex on Twitter.
There you go.
At Alex Mill, Mill 20, right? At Alex Mill 20. It's a great follow.
Sir.
And he's doing a great job. And we'll see you on Saturday night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, y'all. Safe travels.
You got it.
Thank you.
Question of the week comes from a reader, a Mike Berardino reader.
Yes,
what do you got
well, we put it
for
out
the
there.
question of the
Let's
week?
remind everybody listening this way.
Yes.
We've got a new. How many we'll just take one, the best question every week?
Well, if we have more than one question, we can do questions. We can knock down a segment.
I've whittled it down. It took a while. I got the staff together.
It's the fan
Let me
show.
find it.
What do you guys want? If the fans want us to answer their questions, send us your questions.
Send them in.
Yes, we'll answer as many as you have. So Bob Haas, alert reader, Bob Haas, subscriber, checks in and asks, will Cam Williams redshirt or see valuable playing time this season? That's freshman Chicagoland wide receiver, speedster Cam Williams. And I'll go first on that. Keeping in mind, it's a good opportunity for a little news drop as well, right? Because the red shirt rule is expanding yet again, because there's the playoff attempt. And if I'm reading that correctly, before I answer Bob's question, if I'm reading that correctly, I tried to do some quick math as I was glancing through it. It's still the 4-game thing within the 12-game, the sanctity of the 12-game regular season. I believe in the sanctity of 12-game regular season because it's always been that way. And it's not. And then last year they're like, well, go ahead and play a 5th game because we need people to play the bowl game.
Yeah, let's just make that. We won't make that count. You can play
that won't count. It's a non-counting game. But that was fine. You should have. That was the advent of the 5-game red shirt. Mm-hmm. If I'm reading this right, you could play your 4 regular season games, still be good. You could play in your conference championship game, lose the conference championship game. That's 5, and then go win a first-round game, win the quarterfinal game, win the semifinal game, get to the championship game. We're gonna have a 9-game red shirt potentially if somebody can do what I just laid out. As much they're okay with that. So Cam Williams probably in a red shirt.
Yeah,
I would say so. Like he said, valuable. Where are the snaps that Cam Williams is going to get in the like? If we're talking 2023, maybe Cam Williams sees the field like a Rica Flores did. Mm-hmm. This year, you've got so many guys right now. They have 3 wide receiver positions on the depth chart. Each wide receiver position is listed as an or. Mm-hmm. So basically, they have 6 starters.
Yeah.
Maybe add Micah Gilbert as the number 7 receiver. But when you have those 6 guys, maybe Micah Gilbert. Then you throw in all the tight ends. Mm-hmm. There's just not going to be enough passes to go around to get to a Cam Williams. So Cam Williams, best thing he can do this year, learn from the guys above him, whether it's Bo Collins, whether it's Jaden Thomas, whether it's Chris Mitchell, whoever. Look and see and watch how those guys conduct themselves as older upperclassmen type of kids, and then come in for 2025 and say, I'm going to be that guy.
The guy that he's shown himself to be, he's very skilled at, is Tiny Mike, man. So far, he's very good on Tiny Mike. We talked to him in the spring. He spoke to us without a Tiny Mike. He doesn't have it with him all the time. Mm-hmm. He gave great answers. He's a smart guy. He's going to be a great student. He's going to be, when he gets on the field eventually, I think he's got game-breaking potential. But he follows in the footsteps of, this is fun trivia. I hope I didn't forget anyone. I believe he's directly following Eddie Scheidler. Eddie on the street or whatever.
Yeah.
And those are great. Mm-hmm. Also, Litchfield Ajavon, safety, who went on to Rice. He transferred to Rice, but I believe he was a multi-year Tiny Mike man. If you're Cam Williams 1 year with the Tiny Mike and you want to move on, you want to be too busy. I'm too busy for the Tiny Mike. You pass it on to somebody else.
You can't have 2 years in the Tiny Mike. That's a bad omen.
It's too much Tiny Mike. But no, not. I mean, he's in a suddenly loaded room. I mean, that's what you want. Yeah. 11 scholarship guys. Not counting here a walk-on Tyler Buckner, who's not going to,
we're not counting Tyler.
If Tyler Buckner gets on the field at any point, there's going to be everyone saying, "Watch for the fake." Right? Yeah, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be something crazy, a flea flicker. But he's also going to be, doing his thing with the sideline signaling, I believe. But I would say Cam Williams is even behind Logan Saldate, and you already mentioned Micah Gilbert. I mean, among the freshmen, he's going to have to wait. He's going to have to earn his keep.
So speak up. If you want to speak up, drop one of us a question at any of our emails, and we will read your question on the air, and you will get absolutely nothing in return. Except
it's evolving. I like it. I'm glad it's a good addition. And this is Speak Up.
Speak Up.
That is Speak Up. And now, last but not least, we will go to Pod of Bold.
We already did Pod of Old.
We did Bold.
Where's the guy? Where was the guy saying Pod of Bold?
Do we need to add the guy on all
Get him back in here.
No, because we only had him because he was speaking up.
Does he have a name or is that an AI?
It's just it's a real person. I can confirm that, but it's just a voiceover guy.
He's just so
mysterious. Yeah, you can keep the anonymity.
It just pops in.
It just pops in. What
do you need done?
Exactly. Great voice. Yeah.
Totally off the rails. Pod of Bold should be one hot take from each of us, one key storyline from each of us.
That's a lot. This is a big ask.
And one prediction. But since the shows run long, there might be weeks where we're running short on stuff, or we don't have a lot to talk about, which I can never see happening. So let's just cut down Pod of Bold to one game score prediction. Jackson Neal, you're first.
24-21 Notre Dame. I think they go in there. I think they have enough. I think it's going to look ugly with this offensive line turnover. Not going to be a lot of scoring at first, but I think they have just enough talent. Everyone's healthy. A lot of people are, Riley Leonard's healthy. The wide receivers are healthy. I think they're going to be able to get it done this first week, but it's not going to be pretty.
Mike Berardino.
I'll say 24-16 Notre Dame. Team has more talent. Team has more cohesion. It doesn't have to break in 28 transfers like A&M. The A&M's work in progress, like our guest Alex Miller said. Tough place to play, but Notre Dame's at least one score better.
I'm going the ultimate rock fight on Saturday night at Kyle Field. Notre Dame 17, Texas A&M 6. This Notre Dame offense will not look anything like it will on Saturday 6, 7, 8 weeks from now. It's going to take time. You've got to revamp basically an offensive line. You've got a wide receiver core where somebody has to step in and be the guy. Mitchell Evans we don't know about. Riley Leonard we don't know about in this type of atmosphere. And Mike Denbrock we don't know about. Remember, the first game that Marcus Freeman was served as a defensive coordinator, there were people on message boards wondering if he was the right guy to be the defensive coordinator in that first half at Tallahassee. That may happen with Mike Denbrock. It's going to take time for this offense to find its footing, to gel, to really get moving. And once they do, they should be okay. But this defense, I can't see anybody getting anything done on this defense. If they do, that changes maybe something that happens during the way this season unfolds. So I'm going 17-6. Notre Dame, Texas A&M, we'll all be there. Jackson, are you going?
Oh, I'm going. Leaving tomorrow.
So we're all. He's leaving tomorrow.
Yeah, getting out there early.
Look at that the travel budget at WNDU.
Catching me
You're
live.
covering that Yale
He's
practice.
going to Yale
Yeah,
practice at midnight. So.
I don't know. I have the 16 News Now game day, first episode of that, 8 a.m. Central.
There you go.
On Saturday morning.
Speaking of game day, we've got to get out of here so we can go tape.
Yeah, we can.
Countdown to kickoff. So Mike Berardino, Jackson Neal, I'm Tom Noy. This has been Pod of Gold. We'll be back next week to recap A&M and look forward to the home opener against Northern Illinois.
This has been the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold podcast, your home for insightful Notre Dame football coverage and analysis.